Well, hello, and welcome to the John DuLong Show. Episode number 13. I'm John DuLong. Thank you so much for joining me. Really glad to have you here for another dose of the Monday morning nonsense. Hope you're having a good Monday. If you're listening to this on Monday, seems to be where we get the most of our listeners, which I guess makes sense. Release the episode, and that's when it's on your mind. Anyhow, welcome to the show. Normally I'd say we've got a good one for you here. I'm not saying that it's going to be a bad one. I'm just going to say that I don't really know what this show is going to be like this week. I suppose something wacky would happen on episode 13. I was originally supposed to have a guest. I was holding off on doing any recording. I was going to be hanging out with a pal of mine tonight, and we were going to record, and he very suddenly had to go to the hospital. So that'll be an interview for down the line. I won't say who it was. Just going to leave that up in the air. So normally, believe it or not, I have a bit of a plan for this show. And this week I am kind of wigging it. So we'll see what we can do. Hopefully we'll be able to put together a full show. In terms of things that I'm going to talk about today, I guess I'll talk about the government shutdown in the United States. That's been going on. As I'm recording this, today is the 1-year anniversary of the Trump inauguration, and on the same day, the US government shuts down, which just kind of tickles me. The headlines kind of tickle me. So we'll talk about that a little bit. I guess I'll also talk about Aziz Ansari. This one seems like it. I was talking about Johnny Depp last week. This one seems to be another one that's just kind of complicated. So I want to talk about that. Also, I kind of want to talk about the piece that brought all of the allegations to light. In addition, why don't we talk about the number 13? We'll talk about the number 13 because, honestly, I'm sitting here, I'm recording this intro. I know that 13 is supposed to be an unlucky number. I don't really put any real stock into any of that stuff. I'm a pretty skeptical guy when it comes to the mystical or whatever. But we'll maybe talk about why the number 13 is so scary. And finally, I am going to give you a little bit of a taste of a guest. As I'm sure you're well aware, I released an episode with me and Luke Hardiman talking about professional wrestling. I only introduced half of that into the show's archives. So we're going to get the second half of the show where we talk about favorite title belts, we talk about favorite wrestlers. So we're going to go just beyond the favorite tag team conversation. Anyhow, earlier this week, as you may know if you listen to the show, I'm a student. I'm studying to be a paralegal, and earlier this week, my paralegal class took its first field trip. We went to the Nova Scotia Provincial Court here in Halifax, and sat in on a bit of an ongoing trial. Got to hear sort of the second day of what seemed to be a 2-day trial. It was a drunk driving matter. All of this stuff is public record and all that sort of stuff, but I'm not going to name the guy or anything like that. I was really fascinating and really wonderful. I'd been to court before, but it's been over 10 years at this point since I went, and since I had gone. I'm tired today, guys. So it really did underline the fact that I'm in the right position. I'm in the right field. I'm going for the right job. It was really fascinating. It was really exciting. And I say exciting. Of course, courtrooms are not what you see on television. It's the thing that they always say. A lot of those cop shows and dramas in the courtroom. It's not all A Few Good Men and Law and Order. It can be fairly mundane, but I found it really, really exciting and really stimulating and interesting to get to see the lawyers making their questioning their witnesses. the gentleman who was accused, who's on trial for this drunk driving incident. He was one of the witnesses that was giving testimony and was being questioned by both the defense attorney and the Crown prosecutor, and it was a really, really interesting trial. It was interesting to see and to be able to follow what the questions meant. We also got to hear closing arguments, which was pretty cool. And get to see what they were trying to establish based on the questions that they were asking, and to see how the defense used a question that the Crown prosecutor asked in cross-examination to try and make his own case, and vice versa, to sort of see how the Crown prosecutor, how she expanded on the defense attorney's questions to his client, and then to try and figure out, there was a second witness, which I didn't think was all that particularly strong, didn't really provide all that much, but we got to talk it out in class on Friday, to just sort of figure out, okay, so why was she there? What was the point of her being there? What was the argument that the defense was trying to make by asking her the questions that they were asking her? So all in all, really fascinating time, and really, really great. So on the other side, a little bit of music. We'll hear some music now, and we'll go into the president's shutdown of the government. Oh my. Well, he said that he was going to shake up the way things are done in Washington, didn't he? Donald Trump celebrating his 1 year as the President of the United States, and on that 1 year, due to an artificial deadline that he imposed on the closure of the Dreamers Amnesty Act, I guess, DACA, the US government is shut down. So to give you some context, and I'm not an expert on American politics. I follow the news, and I've got a pretty good sense of what's going on. And let's check my biases here. If you haven't noticed already, I'm definitely a progressive dude living in Canada who's not Donald Trump's biggest fan. What I'm also going to say is that underlining all of this is a bunch of people right now who don't have a steady paycheck coming in, and who knows how long that's going to be. They don't have a steady paycheck coming in. When the government shuts down in the United States, any non-essential personnel, so basically other than a skeleton crew in the White House and defense staff and some policing and that sort of stuff, it just stops. Work stops because there's nothing to pay for it technically until the House and the Senate agree on a budget. So until they do, you're going to see at national parks in the United States signs that say that the national park is closed. And this actually happened in New York, at Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, turning away visitors in New York on Saturday due to what the National Park Service described as a lapse in appropriations, which is basically bureaucrat for we don't have any money to run this place right now. So a weird thing that happens in the States is, rather than passing a budget, because budgets are hard to pass, just because you have to get a majority in both houses to agree to something, and you have to have a president who's willing to sign off on that budget. What they'll do is they will pass continuing resolutions, which basically is okay, we're going to fund the government for another X number of months. And we actually saw one of these a few months back, when the last time that the budget was coming due. We're going to fund the government for set number of months, and at that point in time, we'll either decide to actually do a budget, or we will kick the can down the road again. And basically what this was all about, what this eventual shutdown of the government has sort of been, is that budget time is due, and President Trump basically had said that the Dreamers, who are undocumented immigrants who came to America at a very young age. Basically, they were brought to America as kids. They don't have any memories of sort of their home country, the country that they're technically a citizen of. And they've grown up in America, and they've since gone on to have lives in America. And basically, but for being officially citizens, they're citizens of America. So there was a program that was implemented by the Obama administration that, surprise, surprise, the Trump administration had to undo. Basically saying, what he was saying was, rather than giving these people this temporary amnesty that they currently were able to get in order to be able to study and hold down actual jobs and all that sort of stuff, rather than having that continue, he either we're going to have to deport these people, or there needs to be some sort of actual official path for them to have full citizenship. Which, like, on its face, okay, fine. That sounds okay. That sounds like a decent enough idea. The problem is that he sets this deadline for March, basically, that they're going to stop issuing these temporary amnesties to the Dreamers. And March rolls around. If these people don't have official U.S. citizenship, they're gone. They're getting deported. They are no longer allowed to legally be in America. So if I get into much more detail on this, we are going to get into the realm where I'm basically talking out of my ass, because I have a certain understanding of what's going on, but there is a lot of nuance involved. But basically, the way that I understand it is, Democrats, in order to continue funding the government, they want to pass a budget that provides some sort of protection for the Dreamers, some 700,000 people, and the Republicans are saying, we're not going to deal on immigration until you start funding the government again. So it's the classic rock and a hard place. The way that I sort of see this going down is, like, I just don't see how, much like with many other things that the Trump administration tried to do, I just don't see how Trump can win on this one. There are some somewhat reasonable Republicans, particularly in the Senate, who are standing by their word, which essentially was, the Dreamers, as they stand, deserve some form of protection, and something needs to be done for it now. And then the Democrats aren't going to budge, at least the principled ones amongst them. That they're not going to budge on this. When they have the actual leverage to get something done, they're going to have to do it, because they're not going to be able to do anything about it if they give away their bargaining chip. So basically, what I will say above all else is that with the caveat that, like, a lot of people's lives are in the line, not just the 700,000 Dreamers, but also, of course, all those federal employees who don't currently have a paycheck. It just seems oddly fitting that this happens on the 1-year anniversary of President Trump's inauguration. So that's what I'll say about that for now. We're going to move on from here to talk about the number 13. See how that goes.